Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. And because we're now approaching the summer months in the UK, certainly half of this podcast is sponsored by the anti-hay fever drug Piriton. So if things slow down a little bit and...
Slow down a little.
Faster. Oh, I tell you, I've taken my first one of the season today, and it's always a challenge to... and I'm back in the room. There we go. Right.
Isn't there an anti-dozy form now? Dozy, beaky, meeky, titchy.
Yeah, but I'm calling me old-fashioned, but I always take the ones that work for me. It's my own fault for cutting the grass. I should have just left it to gently sway in the breeze. Anyway, this is the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. If you've not caught up with us before, we're two gits. Some say old. I think he's a bit ageist myself, but it's up to you. Talking about comedy. Each week we'll sit and have a listen to or have a watch of a comedy, and then we'll reconvene, as we are doing now, and decide what we make of it.
What are you laughing about?
Well, I just think what we make of everything's a bit weird, isn't it, really? We're a bit out of step with the whole planet, but hey, what can it...
Well, we're certainly not in step with each other most weeks.
I think it's nice, isn't it, though? I'd hate to be in step with you. Before we go any further, can I just say hello to Uncle Paul and Auntie Leslie, who listen. They're not my Uncle Paul and Auntie Leslie, but they're my wife's uncle and auntie, I suppose. Do you just become a de facto auntie if you marry somebody's uncle?
Yeah, you're not an aunt-in-law. There's no such thing.
Not a proper one, though, are you? I don't want to cast aspersions. Anyway, they've been catching a couple of episodes of the Comedy Slab, which was nice.
Oh,
so
gave up after 2 episodes. Well, we can say what we like now.
They'll listen to any old tosh. That's what I like about people like that. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so we'll mark the comedy in question that we're going to have a look at this week, as we do every week. We'll give it a mark each out of 5, giving it a grand total out of 10. And in all the bumps, wherever you listen to this, we'll also put information where you can generally find, although I do have to resort to somebody selling it on eBay, generally find most of the comedies that we slab. And it was my turn to choose last week. I chose Bellamy's People. More of that in a moment. But comedy news, well, not so much comedy news. This was on the Twitter timeline, wasn't it, this thing?
Well, I didn't see it there, but you brought it to my attention.
What do you think? I sent you the link. Just tell me what you... basically, this popped up on my timeline. I think it was promoted. And so goodness knows what it was before it was promoted. But it just
demoted.
It just demoted, yeah. So it just popped up, and I just sent it to you in the same way. I'll tell you what I thought in a minute. You tell me what you thought of what. I mean, if you can explain what I sent.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Having said nothing about what it is, it's called Celeb VM, and the VM is video messages. And I have to say, well, you asked me what I thought of it at first. Let's see what the landing page is. First thing I saw was a picture of William Roach, and it's a good job it's captioned because I'm not a Corrie fan, but I knew instantly once I saw the name Ken Barlow.
Did you not know who he was by the picture?
No, I've watched all of one episode of... You see, I was a Unitarian even in the 80s as far as soap opera was.
Oh, my God. Who watches one episode of Coronation Street? I mean, it's a soap, for goodness sake.
I gave up after that.
It was on 3 nights a week.
It's not for me. Yeah, well, exactly. I haven't got that much life. Anyway, so you see William Roach, Ricky Tomlinson, and John Challis. Took a while for the penny to drop, but it's been a hot day, and the brain's without Piriton, I'm moving quite slowly. And it turns out, well, I wasn't sure it was genuine, but each of them has a price on them, which is one reason not to think it's necessarily serious. You can buy William Roach for 45 quid. Ricky Tomlinson, ditto, and John Challis gets a ginormous 60 quid. It turns out you can order a personalised video message. Now, it was only when I scrolled down and saw the wonderful smiling face of, well, I refuse to use his real name because he's Barry from EastEnders.
Poor old Sean.
I know, poor Sean, but he does even in his sample video, or it's just an example rather, because it's one he's put up, and And by then I'm thinking, no, that's definitely Sean Williamson, Barry from EastEnders, as he was known both in EastEnders, funnily enough, and also in Extras. So for 35 quid, you can order from this website, Custom VM, a customized, personalized, and unique video message from Sean Williamson and others. But then, of course, it becomes addictive, doesn't it? I have to say, before I move on, I mean, I know this isn't a comedy slab review of Sean Williamson's video, but hats off to him. He totally commits to it. He's learnt his lines. He's looking straight into his smartphone, assuming he hasn't got auto cue or any other prompting service on his smartphone. He has learned every line. He doesn't even look down. He's learnt about the customers, the people he's doing it for. He's got a couple of, oh, hello, sorry, I hit play. Anyway, you get the idea. You can see it yourself. But maybe we should review them one of these days. It could be quite a short comedy slam. 2.5 minutes.
You're a fan of it then, do you think? Because I'm
a fan of Sean Williamson, but then it becomes addictive. You can't stop looking for people and see what price they're going for.
Did you do what I did though? And you kind of like you're looking and you're doing a comparative price and you're going, well, I could get two of those for the price of one of those.
Like Coronation Street itself, it's not for me, because you're spoiled when you've been lucky enough to work with some really lovely people, including Sean Williamson when I worked on EastEnders. Why would I want to pay for a video of him looking into his smartphone? He does it beautifully, as I say. I suppose there could be an occasion for someone else, and I'll have to overcome my genuine meanness. Well, what did you make of it?
Well, I just thought it's really, really sad and a bit pathetic. Who would want John Chalice, who was Boise, wasn't he, in Only Fools and Horses? Who would want him doing a video message?
Hello, this is Boise speaking here. You are listening to Shane O'Connor, as indeed I am.
Don't forget me, this is Marlene. We haven't got Duke here, left him at home.
I think it'd be a good idea if we did forget her, but still, never mind.
I mean, there's no way.
What kind of corrupt individual? Come on, fess up. Which radio station was that taken on?
I don't know. Could have been WM. I'm not sure. I did a pre-record with the two, and they're absolutely lovely. They're really nice. And we used to do this too. Well, I used to. I got all kinds of idents from various people. I'll be honest with you. I initially I thought, I got all snobby, and I don't know why. I thought, oh, how sad. Oh, that's really sad. That is. And then as I started perusing through it, I thought, actually, like, it's fair enough, really, isn't it? What's the difference between doing that and doing, I don't know, a voiceover for a museum or something, or for a documentary, or for an advert, or essentially, there's no, because people are saying, they're prostituting themselves and that kind of thing. Well, that's what they do, isn't it? It's not prostitution; it's work for them.
Well, I was going to say you could make an argument that all work is prostitution, but being paid for your skills. But the next thought I had, once I'd worked out that it was actually genuine, the next thought was, for me, it's got COVID written all over it. Not that you can catch it from that website, but that, it's something they are and were previously. I don't know when it started, but it's obviously been going for some time. But, I just wonder, it's something they can do in lockdown quite easily when theatres are dark.
I think it's been going since about 2013, actually, in fairness.
Right. But they obviously saw COVID coming down the track.
I was going to say, obviously, this has got more currency now. I mean, I just clicked on comedy and just to have a look at some of the people who are involved. And I have to say, hats off to the people. They've got people like John Thompson. You mentioned John Chalice, Roy Chubby Brown, Ricky Tomlinson, Simon Day, who's going to crop up in the thing we're going to be slabbing this week. Mike Fielding, Noel Fielding's brother from the Mighty Boosh. Mick Miller. I mean, the list goes on. You kind of think there's Tony Way, who's in Afterlife. We were both saying how much we enjoyed his performances. Arthur Smith, your old mate from Balham.
The mayor of Balham, no less, self-declared.
The self-declared mayor of Balham. Yeah, and you kind of think, well, no. I mean, Duncan Norville, I thought he was dead, to be honest with you, but there you are. He was Chase Me, wasn't he, Duncan Norville? And I think a lot of people did. The one who surprised me the most, and I really did think he was no longer with us, do you remember Freddie Parrotface Davis?
Yeah, well, I'm delighted to know he's still with us.
He's
That's a niche act, isn't it?
yes, it is. Yes, there were not many people who mixed having a bowler hat and a speech impediment at the time.
Now, of course, everyone's doing
Now they're all at it.
But then if I say to you, okay, Barry from EastEnders for 35 quid, if I then say to you and our listeners, okay, you can have Ewan McIntosh for 50 quid, what do you make of that? You might know who I'm talking about, but I think a lot of people might not until they see the photo.
No, I don't.
You don't know either?
No.
If I was to say Big Keith, that mean more?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I never clicked. Yeah, Big Keith
From The Office.
Who a little while ago we were talking about the fact that he couldn't get a job as Big Keith, could he? He was up for an advert.
Oh, I remember you saying that. Yeah, it's so unfair, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that's where it's not necessarily about someone necessarily thinking they're a bigger name. It's just I don't know. It's what you want out of it. But you know, if Big Keith, as I shall now call him, slashed his prices, would he sell twice as many videos? And even if he did, would he want to do twice as many?
I think it's about availability, isn't it? I think the more in demand they are, the higher the price, and which is normal market forces, isn't it? So like Chubby Brown, 75 quid. So
right.
I'm kind of thinking, well, that's because a lot of people. Can you imagine having a video message from Chubby Brown?
I wouldn't play it to any senior relatives. Let's put it that way.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't put it on your iPhone when you're at the school gates, would you? That's a
not if you wanted to remain a free man or woman. No.
More power to their elbow. That's what I say. Anyway, if you want to have a look at what we're looking at, celebvm.com, you might want to go and get yourself one if you want to. We have no affiliation with them, and we receive no money from them.
Well, you say that, but I saw your name there. It says Shane O'Connor, 50 quid. And I thought, hang on a minute. But it turns out you pay them.
Yeah, but I do mine as the man from Denim, the Denim adverts. So.
Oh, come on. You can't just say that without doing it.
Denim aftershave for men.
For the man who doesn't have to try. Is that the one?
Yeah, but you always tell me off. I never say. I go,
for the man who doesn't have to try too hard.
Then you always say it's something else, but I don't
Do
know.
I?
Yeah.
Well, we can't dwell on that.
Anyway, on with the podcasts.
Yes.
So, Bellamy's People. What can we tell you about this? Rhys Thomas plays the part of Gary Bellamy, the award-winning journalist. He, I want to say he, I mean Gary Bellamy, or Rhys Thomas, the actor playing Gary Bellamy, hosted a Radio 4 phone-in program called Down the Line, which was a 30-minute sort of sketch comedy program. And a lot of Radio 4 listeners thought it was the real deal, didn't they? And complained about how down market the BBC.
I would not just listeners, not just, as it were, any old listeners, but Gillian Reynolds, the esteemed and long-running radio critic of the Daily Telegraph, no less.
Did she?
She was taken in. Then she was furious, of course, as you would be, on a professional basis.
So, they did the radio show, and the spin-off, the TV spin-off, only went for one series, funnily enough, although it had more than the normal 6 episodes in it. And the TV spin-off was Bellamy's People, which we were looking at episode 7. I think there were 8 in total, so it doesn't take much to work out. This is the penultimate one. So before we start and get into the thick of it, what were you thinking when you were aware of this? I'm guessing.
Yes. Well, I'm trying to think how much I gave away last week, because there is an incentive not to give too much away to each other. But then I'm an open book very often, especially when I'm not thinking straight, which is most of the time. So I gave away the fact that I wasn't a fan of Down the Line. That never worked for me at all, I'm sorry to say. And I was probably not my usual Unitarian self. I think I gave it more than one go. So I had a bit of a heavy heart, to be honest. I hadn't seen Bellamy's People, but I think the reason I didn't seek it out was Down the Line didn't do it. But of course, that's not the way to approach it, especially not really for, it's not worthy of the comedy slab ethic and spirit, is it really? Because it's to have a go is the spirit. So I certainly was. I was curious to see whether I would have the same reaction as to Down the Line.
All right. Should we bang into a clip and let everyone have a listen as to what it's all about? as they say. I think it's fair to say, down the line, the radio series was about the callers calling in. This kind of gets behind the scenes of the whole thing, and the idea is that Gary Bellamy goes out and meets the people who were phoning into his radio show, and that's essentially that's the premise of the whole thing. I mean, that's the way that they, sketch show or sitcom. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second. So the first clip, we kick off with his first guest. This is Julius Olafenwe, played by the wonderful late Felix Dexter. He's in London, and he's telling Gary why he loves Great Britain.
So I first started at the University of Catford, and then I moved down I'm currently at the University of Broadstairs, and I'm studying hotel management and food technology.
I start my journey this week in London with Julius Olufenwe, someone who cares passionately about his adopted country.
I've been in this country now for must be 20 years. I've been here in one form or another. Yes, I've been here for 20 years.
And what is it you love about Britain?
Oh my goodness, what a question. It's everything I love about Britain. I love it to the fullest. But this is the country of Shakespeare. It's the country of Byron. It's the country of Keats. This is the country of Churchill. This is the country of Jimmy Savile, you know? Now then. Yeah. I mean, how can you not enjoy that? Now then, how's about that then? You know what I'm talking about? Tops of the Pops, songs of praise, antique roadshow. How can I not love this country? This is a glorious manifestation to me of humanity in action, and I praise it to the fullest. I mean, look around us, my friend. Look at that. What a magical manifestation physically of what is so lovely about this country. Yes. No, in no other country in the world can you have something like that. No other country at all in the world.
Well, there's one in China, there's one in Paris.
Yeah, well, it's not quite as good as that, I'm telling you.
Before we go any further, that Jimmy Savile gag hasn't travelled very well through time, has it?
Do you know?
But
I was going to say, because we all held our breath, didn't we, collectively there when he started on that particular avenue. And I thought, actually, I'll leave that in and I'll use that clip because I think it's quite illustrative of things that fall by the wayside through no fault of their own.
Absolutely. Well, it's 2010, isn't it, this particular series? And not so... I mean, obviously, before the Savile thing broke, that would never have hit the air had it been the other way round.
I don't think there was anything ominous in that at all. I think it was just one of those things they picked. But go on, don't keep us in suspenders.
I have to, because as happens every week, what are we on? Episode 151, and I haven't learnt to think in advance of a headline. So this is very much on the hoof. It's not Bella, and it's not for me.
Oh, yeah. Bella me.
Oh, thank you for explaining my gag.
I was just working it out in my own head, actually, to be honest with you.
It doesn't really work, but neither do I.
Oh, so you were kind of like, what, the same feeling as Down the Line? I can't believe you didn't like Down the Line. I thought it was so well observed.
I am apparently quoted at dinner parties, which is shocking in itself, that I know anyone that can go to dinner parties. They probably haven't been for the last year or so. But I'm quoted on what I said once, which is that you can't parody something that's already a self-parody. And I'm going to quote myself, actually. I'm going to re-own my own quote because I think that is true. And if you want to have a laugh, but quite a sort of causticy, hollow laugh, just tune into any phone-in on any occasion at any time. I don't see where you can go with it. You can't do better than the real thing. And that's a starting problem for me. The other one, I'm afraid, which is not to denigrate his acting, it's just the way I think he's cast and directed his role in this. This is for me, a polo mint show. It's got a hole in the middle. And I'm afraid it is the Bellamy of the title. So it's the Bellamy rather than the talented Rhys Thomas. It just doesn't work for me at all. Having this very bland, and I have to say, someone who's got a voice not unlike mine. So that's another thing. It's just, it's just not, everyone else is exotic. And I realise I think that is the formula they've gone for. If we make Bellamy as neutral as possible, everyone else is freer to be funnier. I get that. But to me, you could write a computer program to do that, and the computer would churn out a neutral star at the centre of the show. But, comedy shouldn't be written by computers. They haven't really got a sense of humour.
You're right, because it's not, he's acting that role, isn't he? Because you've only got to look at Rhys Thomas in something like Star Stories. So he's kind of just putting on this blandness. But you're right. But, don't you see that kind of, for me, that is the whole, it's not about him, is it? He's just the conduit in order for us to see all these other characters.
But he just looks so inauthentic as a character. Goes down the pub. I suppose in a sense he's got to be different in the, being thrust into any spotlight or being at the centre of a show makes you different somehow, even if you don't want it to be, even if you don't act different. But he's down the pub, and it just seems to me the people around him are free to be themselves, but he's this awkward, gawky.
But that, to me,
you're going to tell me that's the point, aren't you? And everyone,
yeah, but in a way. But I also think that I was going to say that he does awkwardness, I think, better than Coogan does with Partridge. I think you're right. He sat in the pub, and he's kind of like, although he's almost trying to let himself go and be the host. The material that he's got to work with, i.e. Chris Nibbs, aka Nibsy, who's kind of built up his own persona. That stems out of Down the Line, I seem to recall.
Right, that's Charlie Hickson playing it, by the way.
Yeah, that he's kind of, it's Nibsy here, he's like kind of made a character for himself to inveigle himself into Gary Bellamy's show and to be more noticed, sort of thing. And you would get people like that, you'd get people who would do that. But his awkwardness, I think, is the most authentic thing about the programme. It's really weird that you see the exact opposite, don't you, in a way?
Yeah, it's almost like we've swapped notes beforehand. We're each playing this diametrically opposed character. And people might think we cynically do that, but we don't. We just naturally disagree, don't we, half the time, at least half the time.
The really weird thing is that I deliberately, like when you're kind of like formulating and thinking how you feel about something, I deliberately think, all right, okay, this is how I see it, and you identify that, and you just like see the exact opposite.
It's like I'm being told off. I can't help it.
No, but at the time, I'm just sitting there thinking, well, he'll never think the opposite of this because everyone will see that he's like that. It's so
everyone
funny.
thinks like you, don't they?
Well, do you know, I suffered from that for a number of years. I thought everybody was living their life like me, and how wrong I was.
Yes, about as wrong as it's possible to be.
So let's explore the other characters then. If you kind of, I know Bellamy's quite a central part of the whole thing, but what about Felix Dexter with Julius Olafenway or whatever his name is?
Right. Well, sorry. Before I forget, let me say this is a BBC Vision Productions, Down the Line Productions, and Marmalade Studios. Just so we keep the lawyers at bay. But Felix is as brilliant as this show allows him to be, but unfortunately, that is not as brilliant as I know and believe he can be. I'm speaking in the present tense, but as you've said, sadly, he's no longer with us and died far too young.
53, wasn't he? I looked at it the other day.
Shocking.
No, 55 he was, 55. Same age I am now. Which is
yeah, it's never the ones you want, is it?
No, thanks for that. I hear you.
But can I challenge people? I'll set down the gauntlet if they haven't already seen it. Felix Dexter's character Nathaniel, or as he would say it, Nathaniel, in The Real McCoy, which is a show happily I worked on back in the 90s.
Did you?
I did. I'm very proud of that. Well, anyway, I think people should look up Nathaniel plus Felix Dexter on the Google or some proprietary alternative search engine.
On the Google. All right, Grandad.
Ask Jeeves, or I like Alta Vista. It's one of my favourites. Oh. But anyway, I think he just soars. He's in his element. I saw Felix Dexter as a stand-up, and I was just thinking today, one of my sadnesses is when I stood next to him, stood standing, as he was rehearsing Nathaniel, which finished, or between rehearsals, and I had a chance. He was just a really nice guy, just talking to the sound crew and probably camera people as well. And I wish I'd told him then I was the person he thanked for laughing when he came on stage. And I'm afraid you will need to get your box of bleeps out for this. But he came on stage. I saw him at the Comedy Store. This is in the white heat of alternative comedy. And his first line was, "How many anarchists does it take to change a light bulb?" Off. And I'd had a beer, which of course is like being completely wrecked. And I laughed. And he said, "Thank you." Without knowing which person in the dark there with the spotlight on him. And I wish I'd told him. Anyway, that's a huge digression. Follow that how you will.
Sorry, the Puritans kicked in again. Yeah.
I think you should take more, actually, because I get more words in edgeware.
Keeps me quieter, doesn't it? I'm guessing then that you're going to say that the characters, how did you find let me not put words into your mouth.
Too late, you've done it.
I'm sorry, my lord, let me change the question.
Objection, my lord.
Yes, to myself. How did you find the characterizations then? Did you enjoy that? I mean, you mentioned his there, but what about some of the others? I mean, we've got people like Martin Hole, the builder, which is played by Paul Whitehouse.
Oh, that was, yeah. Well, look, I confess, I think I tried to take off my prejudicial goggles, but I think I might have failed here. I think I have to fess up that I just couldn't clear how I felt about Down the Line. And I was trying not to look for fault, but it seemed to find me. And look, they're all accomplished actors without exception. And there were some giggles, but not with that one. I just found that difficult and laboured. Just quite slow to get gags out, generally, I think. I think it could have done with a tighter script edit.
Well, here's the thing about the script. I'm glad you mentioned the script, because here's the thing that occurred to me is that the cast get a writing credit, don't they? That's who wrote it. So it occurs to me, and when you look at it, and I think it was more. I think there was a character that Felix Dexter played, where he was a really posh guy who lived in
the Cotswolds.
In the Cotswolds,
an architect.
An architect.
I've even scribbled it down.
Aubrey de Boisson.
Oh, you got there first, you rotter. Yeah.
And whilst the character, was kind of quite well formed, and you knew where you were going with that, I felt that the sketch itself, in the same way that Adol Ray stuff, the MC Ra stuff, the sketch wasn't fully formed, and I kind of get the impression that there was a lot of, well, let the cameras roll and let's see where it goes.
You thought quite a lot of ad-libery then?
An awful lot, I think. And I think the problem with that is that you have to do an awful lot. You have to throw a lot at the walls in order for it to stick, don't you?
Well, I don't know that I agree that it was ad-lib. It didn't feel that to me. But really? Something wasn't sticking, I know that.
I mean, the Felix Dexter one, where he, in fact, I think it was that character that we just heard, the Julius Olafenwe character, when he was talking about, he was misnaming all of the monuments and saying, oh, that's Nelson's column, and he's going, no, it isn't that. And he kind of resorted to saying things like, oh, shut up, it doesn't matter, shut up. And I thought, that's just bad ad-libbing, that is. It's not, they haven't really thought through where this is going to go, kind of thing. The basic idea was that he was going to get all the places or all the monuments wrong, but they hadn't really thought it through any further than that. And I kind of think that's where it fell a bit weak. But you thought it was scripted, did you, more than that?
Well, I'm going to have to replay it in my head now, but I won't pause while I do that. I thought you were going to pick up on an utterly unbelievable misunderstanding by Mr. Bellamy, which I'm afraid it just adds to a roll call of it not working for me, that character, and indeed the show, because it's so dependent on it, with one or two lighter spots. But a misunderstanding in that Cotswold sketch of what Aubrey, the Felix Dexter black character, obviously, was referring to as his prestigious endowment. And we went down, it was 2010, and the joke was essentially an endowment mortgage misunderstanding. And I thought, no one's taken out an endowment mortgage for at least 10 years by then. And if Bellamy is really not that bright enough to work out that the Felix character is talking about his member, then I don't know. That's just doesn't work on any level, really.
It's not the most ingenious setup, is it? Really, in that sense.
No, it saddened me to think that the collective talent there.
Yeah, but again, I mean, there were. You see, for you saying about how Felix Dexter was a standout for you. Simon Day for me. Simon Day for me always plays menacing so well, and he had this character. What was he called? Tony Beckton, reformed criminal. And where he was, and you could see Gary Bellamy doing it. He was saying to Gary Bellamy, he said, I don't like people looking me in the eye. Don't look me in the eye, he said, because the red mist comes down. He said, and like you think he's doing it now, like it's almost like a panto moment. You want to shout, he's behind you, he's looking you in the eye. Oh, don't look him in the eye, whichever way you wanted to go with it, kind of thing. And so for me, there were characters there that Adil Ray's Mr. Khan, who of course later became Citizen Khan, didn't he? I thought was so well observed for, in the 80s and 90s. I knew people like Mr. Khan, who I worked alongside and had a habit of going all the while. And I just thought that is, again, it's just so well observed, It's just bit of class there, really. So I thought there were good characters, and I thought the women in the troupe, as it were, Lucy Montgomery and Amelia Bullmore, who were both fine actresses, when they did their thing as the
Bellamy's Babes.
No, the one you referenced.
Oh, the fascist sympathisers.
Which was quite obviously the Mitfords, wasn't it? It was the only characters in the whole thing that I thought, oh, this is actually based on real life. This is the who I actually interviewed one of the Dowager Duchess of Devonshire, who was because she was the big cheese at Chatsworth House. That was their ancestral home, but. Right. And you didn't like it. I see when you sent me a note earlier and you mentioned the fact they were referring to the Führer as Dear Fuffy.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you referenced that earlier. I thought, I wonder if you enjoyed what he was watching then. But no, you didn't.
It was a spoiler.
Nothing.
Spoiler. No, I did. There was something there. And I did think Mitford sisters straight away. And I did. It's one of those things. I had a delayed thing where I found the Hitler character trying to do Charlie Chaplin. It was quite funny. But I didn't laugh at the time. All very odd. So it's okay. But hats off to, Lucy Montgomery's stunning looking. She's got the most amazing eyes. I once it's name dropping again, but I literally just passed her at TV Centre. And I don't know, it's just a nice fond memory.
I don't know why I thought you were going to say, I once had an injunction taken out against me by her for stalking and harassment. Anyway, should we have another clip? Should we hear characters that we haven't talked about yet?
Yes.
And I suppose, are they stars of the show, Charlie Higson and Paul Whitehouse? I don't know. There are so many bright lights in there. They're doing a couple of characters here called Brigadier Mike Archer and Colonel Hugh Fenwick. And they're talking about the modern British Army.
A lot of people, particularly in the media, get quite obsessed with the violent aspect of the British Army. They focus, I think, too much on the killing, the bloodshed and destruction and ruined lives. Because the modern British Army is primarily an organisation.
What is actually the function of the modern British Army then?
Well, I would say that we're primarily an organisation which is concerned with moving things from one part of the world to another.
In a sense, we're like a kind of military Ocado.
Yes, the modern British Army is 90% logistics.
And 10% extreme violence.
Sand houses, I made a step like I used to make sand men.
I've travelled north to meet my favourite poet, Geoffrey Allerton, a national treasure whose work is a uniquely British window on the world.
So this is where I grew up, and after Mother died, I kept it on rather than selling it, and I come here to write because I find the whole place so suffused with memories. I mean, I just love being here and looking at all this ghastly old bric-a-brac that Mum collected,
Have you left the place unchanged? So, for example, if we went to your mum's bedroom, would all her old clothes still be there?
No. No, that's a horrible idea, isn't it? I've removed the clothes and the personal items and so forth. It's not a shrine, you know.
No.
But sometimes I do sleep in Mum's bed.
And we find out he tries other things in her bed as well. But put off by an old sock. I don't want to... well, I've already given too much away.
Simon Day again.
Something that's meant to be about Britain. It did occur to me there. We're mostly talking about England, aren't we? Let's be honest. In fact, are there any Scottish, Northern Irish, Welsh characters at all?
I don't know. I'd have to go back through the series and have a peruse. I'm not really quite sure. I mean, sorry, I have to say I mentioned the Coombs sisters earlier on, which were quite obviously based on the Mitford sisters. I mean, there's a quite obvious basis for that character as well, isn't there? Did you get who it was? Did you not get Alan Bennett from that at all, or not? No.
No, I didn't. I was probably thrown off by the blonde wig. It doesn't take much to confuse me. Coming back to Messrs. Hickson and Whitehouse, basically this is the Fast Show without Arabella Weir, isn't it? That's what I thought halfway through. And then I thought, well, I'd swap Gary Bellamy for her and see if we couldn't revive a bit more of the Fast Show spirit. They could be really good together. But again, I felt this is very laboured, this joke, about the British Army, modern British Army. Yeah, we're playing down the killing stuff. I mean, the Ocado gag I did like. And Whitehouse, I have to say, he's got more range than Hickson, hasn't he? He goes up and down the British social scale, or particularly English social scale, as I'm saying, with such conviction. And his look to camera on the Ocado thing, and that outpoint that we just heard before the next sketch. It's to die for, but again, it's one of those. It's less than the sum of its parts, and the parts are very talented actors. So I'm left with a feeling. Well, I'm certainly not surprised it didn't go to a second series. I just think, for me, the formula's wrong.
Well, it was brave to do 8 in a series as well, wasn't it? I think it's an interesting idea. I thought the formula was right. And I'll tell you why I thought the formula was right is because I think doing the clips, I kind of noticed that most of the sketches or inserts or whatever you wanted to call them, they were mostly about a minute. And I think because of the fact that they did that, I think was very much its strength was that it provided it with pace because you were moving on. So if you're getting bored of the character, you were, next you were seeing Mr. Khan, and then you were back to Felix Dexter doing a different character, and then you were back to Bellamy's Babes that you mentioned, or I've got to mention Graham Downs, the Paul Whitehouse character, the 23. He talks a bit like that, doesn't he? You're on Gary. I mean, which to me works so well on radio. I thought it was just so clever that he really obviously had observed radio phone-ins, and
that's a lonely man wanting someone to talk to, isn't it? Yeah. Which is, for me, a lot of phone-in.
Yeah,
a lot of what's wrong with phone-ins.
But I'm sure the voice must have been based on a real person because it is so astute in that sense. But I just, like I say, I think the minutes hit and in and out and in and out, and you're on to the next one. The weak part for me was I thought the writing wasn't nailed down enough, and I do think I'm adamant with that. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but my hunch is, and I've had a terrible hunch most of my life. My hunch is that it was ad-libbed and largely ad-libbed, and
as was that Hunchback joke.
Yeah, exactly, and which is why the cast get a writing credit as well, because they just kind of said, okay, right, action. Roughly where are we going? Let's do it.
Anyway, shall we go to the inevitable scores?
Bit scared now, but yeah, you're going first.
Okay, yeah, 2.5 out of 5.
Wow. Okay, I think that's quite low. You see, if I mean for you, that's you might as well have just given it a big fat 0 and said it's the worst thing you've ever seen.
No, because it wasn't, because there's some lovely actors in there.
Okay, well, 2.5 for you. I'm going to go for 3.5. Because I quite liked it. It wasn't the best thing I've ever seen, and it certainly wasn't the best work from the collective cast, as we mentioned, because they've all done better things. But I think it was an interesting vehicle, and like I say, 3.5 for me. So that's a total of 6 out of 10 for Bellamy's People. Sadly, without going and buying a copy of the DVD from Amazon, which is the only place I could find it. I mean, I'm guessing it's available elsewhere, but it is very, very scarce and in very short supply. So how are we looking for next week then, Saucy?
Well, it's not particularly saucy, but it's an interesting premise, and arguably, no, not arguably, I would have thought definitely it could only happen with the year we've had with a pandemic. It's a big clue, this, if you've seen trailers, but it's someone performing in front of an entirely empty theatre, apart from a film crew, TV crew.
Oh, okay.
Does that not ringing any bells?
No.
Well, if I say Friday night dinner,
right,
which of those might you think? Do you know for a fact is a stand-up act?
It's the geeky one from The In-Betweeners, isn't it?
It's Simon Bird.
Simon Bird, that's it. Yeah.
And the show is called Simon Bird Debrief. I've only watched a fraction of one, but I was sufficiently intrigued. It's Channel 4, so you'll find it at channel4.com or on your favourite app, All 4. And yeah, I've watched enough to be intrigued by the concept, but not enough to have made my mind up about it. So it'd be interesting for me. I believe there is only the one show, yeah, because it's described as a special, and the special thing is no audience, and you can imagine that provides a certain amount of comedic fodder itself. So that is your homework.
All right.
Simon Bird Debrief, Channel 4 for next week.
Yes, if you've enjoyed the Comedy Slab, don't forget you can catch us on all the usual locations. We're very popular for some reason. I think a lot of podcasts are popular. I don't think it's us particularly, but we are very popular on Spotify if you wanted to head over there. But hey, it's your choice, wherever you want to go. We originate from Spreaker. So if we're not available and you need us to be somewhere, let us know, drop us a line. It's nice to see a lot of people getting in touch as well, isn't it? You know, I had conversations on our Facebook page the other day with people about comedy programs and stuff like that. I do love that, actually. You know, it's nice to have a chat about stuff. And in fact, I've already got my suggestion for next week, for the following week, because it's been suggested to me by somebody who dropped us a note on Facebook. So thanks for that, and keep it up.
They never learn, do they? You mentioned Facebook. We have a page there where the handle is @ComedySlab, and it's the same handle @ComedySlab on Twitter. Do follow us there. It's another way of staying in touch with us and communing. And we're garnering votes for the, whatever it is, the Amazon best podcast of the ever century world universe at the moment. We're going at a fairly steady pace.
Got to be a shoe-in for that. I mean, their People's Choice Award, because I think we've got 3 votes, is it, or something like that? 3 or 4?
Yeah, I would have thought it's a shoe-in, yeah.
Got to be.
But, you know, if you want to make it 4 votes, then just make it an even more dead asserter. And a personal recommendation is appreciated, not just by us, but by, we think, the person you recommend us to. So pass the word on, please do. And another way of doing it is via Apple Podcasts, iTunes. If you give us a whopping great star rating there, we'll love you even more than we already do. And a few comments supplied along with the star rating to boost our fragile male egos. Thank you.
So until next time, from me, Shane, and him, Adrian, thank you very much for your company. I've figured out how to use this opposing energy that we've got. I was just thinking about it then, and I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to ask you what you think the winning lottery numbers are for next week. And then
do the opposite.
Whatever you say, just choose different ones. At least I've reduced it then by 6, haven't I? So
would we split the proceeds? No, we'd just fall out over that, wouldn't we?
Well, I'd want to, and then you say, no, I don't want it. And then I'd say, all right, you're not having it. Then you go, well, I want it. And it just carries on like that. I mean, it's like an infinite loop, isn't it, this?
And I'm going to record something on a mobile phone for Shane and try and charge him 50 quid for it. Although where I'll get with that is anybody's guess.
Topless.